So thank you for coming tonight. This event is Tech Trends for 2025 and beyond. This is one of our favorite events, usually one of our largest events. It's a chance for us to really sort of preview, in a way, the year ahead in programming for the Austin Forum on Technology and Society, and more importantly, share some thoughts on the technologies that we think are going to have a big impact in the year ahead and why. Now, we have to do it rather quickly because we have about an hour to do this plus Q&A. But we really enjoy covering a lot of technologies in this one event, and then over the course of the rest of the year, we'll dive into many of these technologies more. Juan, this clicker is still, oops, there we go. So the Austin Forum, for those of you who are new, we cover emerging and pervasive technologies. So it might be something that's been in your life for a while. It might be something that is on the cusp of being transformational, but it's the technologies that are important in your life. We specifically don't focus on one technology. The interplay between these technologies often has profound effects. You can just look to the cell phone in your pocket that is now a smartphone with GPS, satellite communications, accelerometers, and many other technologies that have come together in that one device to make really a phone the last thing most of us use it for. It's a mini computer, it's a camera, it does so many other things. We cover all of these technologies so that you, as a professional or just an enthusiast, have an idea what might be coming next. Maybe it'll spark something of interest or opportunity for your company or organization. Maybe it'll spark a career change. We've had a lot of people who've credited coming to the Austin Forum over the years with changing careers and getting into tech or getting into new areas of tech or getting their company into a different area of tech. Sorry, the clickers just give me a little bit fits tonight, but we'll be okay. So again, I'm Jay Boisseau. If you have any questions or suggestions about content for the Austin Forum, please feel free to contact me. My email address is on here, jay@austinforum.org. If you just go to our website and you don't remember JAY, then INFO will work as well. So you can send it to the info address there as well. I want to give a quick introduction to Brian Port. He's the director of the Center for Government and Civic Service here at ACC Rio Grande. So happy to introduce, oh, here he is, Brian over here. Brian, you want to say a few words?
Welcome, everybody. Happy New Year. Welcome to ACC and the Center for Government and Civic Service. This center is dedicated to enabling and empowering our students to become more effective civic leaders and public servants. Technology is obviously a big part of that. So we're happy to see everybody here. Very happy to be working with Jay. The college itself is doing a lot more these days in training folks to be involved with different fields of technology, for example, advanced manufacturing. And then finally, if folks need some good event space, drop me a line and we'll see if we can hook you up. But otherwise, back to you, Jay.
Thanks, Brian. Yeah, I can't speak highly enough of Brian and his team. It's been wonderful moving our events here. Our team has a sense of almost relief each time we come here. Everything just works. It's a wonderful space. It's got great networking areas. The technology works. Thanks to Juan over here on AV tonight. Really happy to be here. So the Austin Forum, for those of you who are new, you clearly understand that we have these big presentation events at which experts or people that we believe to be experts are on this stage telling you and sharing with you their insights, their expertise, information that we hope you'll find valuable, useful, and or entertaining. So these are sort of the bread and butter monthly events of the Austin Forum. And they're where a lot of information gets shared at these 12 events over the course of the year. They also lead to lots of great networking afterwards. I hope you'll consider staying for that. In past surveys, we have found that half of Austin Forum regular attendees are either collaborating with people that they've met through the Austin Forum or have met people they expect to be collaborating with in the year ahead. In fact, one of my favorite conversations is when I talk to people in networking and they're trying to remember how they got to collaborating with each other. And I remind them it's because you met here at the Austin Forum where you are right now. And then they, oh yeah, that's right. That's how that happened. So we hope that you'll stay for the networking afterwards. We also have other event types that I hope you'll come to. These events are hybrid. So we're very happy to have an online audience, and it's actually a global online audience that tunes into these, sometimes during the event and sometimes afterwards on YouTube. We have two other event types. We have in-person only events, usually of a meetup format, but sometimes of a workshop format. And we have online discussion groups almost always of a book discussion format. We pick different books to discuss in the intersection of science, technology, and society each month. Occasionally a science fiction book if we think the author has been very innovative in his way of thinking about the future and the role that technology will play. Usually a nonfiction book, often something on the New York Times bestseller list that will explain new technologies to you. We also have a great Slack community. It has a few thousand people in that. It's a great place to seek jobs and opportunities or advertise jobs and opportunities for other people. We allow people to share events for other tech and society kinds of organizations in there as well, and many other things. So I hope you'll join the Slack community, and there's a real good incentive coming up for that. We also have a podcast series. We have about 80 episodes in that. We've been on hiatus for almost a year, but we're about to reboot it. Right now, the last question we have is, what are we going to call it? We know we want to rebrand it. So it's not the Austin Forum Upload, but it's something presented by the Austin Forum. So if you've got any great ideas for a podcast name, please let us know. I also want to make sure and thank our wonderful annual partners. They're the ones who make all of this programming possible. If you were doing the math from the previous slide, you can guess that there are about 30 to 40 events per year. And when we're podcasting, about 30 episodes a year of that as well. All of that, the facilities, the refreshments, the support for staff, the software license, et cetera, is made possible by these very generous companies that believe in the mission of the Austin Forum, that believe it's important for people to keep up with technology, and not just one, but all technologies, to become more informed professionals, more informed at home about the use, more informed voters about issues related to technology policy. So these are great companies. You can see on here global technology giants, and you also see small Austin companies that just believe in the value of having this in our ecosystem. So I do want to ask you, please give a round of applause for these great annual partners. I will say we also draw a lot of our speakers from these, because we don't take just anyone to be an annual partner of the Austin Forum. As you can see from the kinds of companies that are on here, a lot of these are technology leaders themselves, and so have something to say in our diverse programming throughout the year. If you're interested in being an annual partner, please let me know. Before we get started, I want to encourage you to join our Slack space. The easy button is just go to the website and click on Slack menu in the upper right side of it, and then join. It's important to join, not just because it's a good way to share information asynchronously in a national and global community, but it's also the way to win a South by Southwest badge coming up. So you have an opportunity tonight to win a badge that's worth over $1,000 for one of the best and most fun and most creative tech conferences, and also music and film coming up in March. Unfortunately for the online audience, the badge is only eligible to be won by somebody in the room tonight based on South by Southwest rules. But everybody online is also still welcome to ask questions tonight. But if you're in the room, you're definitely going to want to ask questions using the Slack channel. And we'll get to that in just a little bit because that is one of those questions will be picked to win that South by badge. So with that, we're going to start our feature presentation. Make sure and join Slack, and make sure to add the channel event-questions. My secret guest moderator is going to be scanning that channel all night long, looking for great questions to ask in the Q&A. Now, I'll give you a couple of tips. Don't start asking questions now. You haven't seen the presentation yet. And I guess I gave away one thing, but our guest moderator is not going to take questions that are submitted before the speakers have even begun talking. Also, don't try to game the system because the badge is so valuable. She is not going to pick a winning question from somebody who's asked more than 3 questions in that. Give everybody a chance to ask great questions, give everybody an equal opportunity, and she will pick one of those questions to read at the end of Q&A to win the South by Southwest 2025 badge. And with that, we are going to move to our main presentation, Tech Trends for 2025. The and beyond is in parentheses because you're going to see that most of the focus is on technology trends that we believe will have an impact this year. But we do want to pay attention and mention technologies that you should be paying attention to this year, even though the impact may be felt after this year. We're not going to spend as much time in those slides on those, but our experts are going to talk about those. And with that, I actually changed my hat. I become the CEO of Visius HPC and AI consulting company, for this next part of the presentation. And I'm happy to introduce literally two of the smartest tech geniuses I've ever met in my life. I've had the good fortune of knowing them each for, Jimmy, ever since I didn't buy that supercomputer from you 30 years ago, and he hasn't forgotten about it yet. And Jay, I can't remember how long I've known you, 15 years, something like that. There are people that you really want in your, whatever the digital modern day version of a Rolodex is. They truly have been in and around technology for a long, long time. They have dabbled in many different technologies. So they're really good people to talk about different technologies and how they may play together as well. So I'll bring them up one by one, but first, please give a round of applause for Jimmy Pike and Jay Williams. So I'm going to start with just a little bit of context. I'm going to go through these next slides really fast so that I can turn it over to Jimmy first and then Jay. And one of the questions we get asked is, why do you do this event? Your other events really dive into technologies, but is it really important to monitor technology trends? And so I would put this question out to you. Why do humans make predictions at all? There are fun reasons for doing it, to be sure, but one answer is to know how the future will affect them and how you might take advantage of it. For shelter, food, and safety were some of the earliest reasons humans tried to predict. Was that saber-toothed tiger going to attack? What does that thunder and lightning in the distance mean? Is that group of cave people across the river going to attack? Is the drought going to kill all of our crops, and so on? So there are wonderful reasons to try to understand the future and try to change it in some way to benefit yourself. More recently, probably things like money, fame, success, happiness, fun, and dating. But these are all reasons people try to understand not just what is happening, but what is going to happen next. So I would argue that tech trends falls into this very natural human inclination to understand what is going to happen next, how it's going to affect you, and how you can make it affect you in a positive way. So yes, it is important as well as fun. Tech capabilities, data, and knowledge are increasing exponentially. So it's more important in your career now to understand these trends than it used to be in thousands of years of agricultural knowledge, when knowledge wasn't changing very fast, and your grandfather could pass the knowledge down to your parents and them down to you, and things were probably pretty similar, and there were modest advances over 5 millennia, but not tremendously substantial over most of that 5 millennia. In the industrial era, things started changing faster. Now in the technology, data, and AI era, things are changing daily. Knowledge is increasing exponentially. Technology capabilities are often increasing exponentially. So finding things like the Austin Forum and other ways to keep up becomes really, really important. And understanding these trends and the possible convergence of some of these technology trends becomes very important as well. These can be important not just to survive, as that would have been the case, centuries ago, but to thrive, to innovate, to compete. So your companies really should be tracking technologies that may affect them, including technologies that they're not sure if they will, but to understand the possible impact on your company's profits, on its products, on its bottom line. And then there are great reasons for humanity overall to track these things, because we have really big problems to solve, like climate change and others, for which technologies may play an increasingly important role in how we develop solutions for those. So this awareness, this understanding in this context can lead to familiarity first, and then prioritization about what you're going to learn, what you're going to adopt, and what kind of impact it can have on your life and in your organization or company. So I decided to ask Gemini. Last year I asked ChatGPT. I decided to ask Gemini Advanced what it thought of the importance of tech transfer. And one thing about these chatbots is, no matter how brief you tell them to be, their definition of brief is different than your definition of brief. So it did span 2 slides, but I thought, well, this is pretty good. Stay competitive in the job market, boost your earning potential, improve your productivity and efficiency. You're going to hear something about that from our first speaker tonight. Enhance your communication and connection. Access information and learn new skills. You're going to hear some stuff about that tonight as well. Make informed decisions. Be more creative and innovative. This is a topic of a lot of discussion. And in fact, I encourage you to come to the Austin AI and Art event on January, I believe it's 30th, And then there's an Austin AI Film Festival in March as well. And these two events are really going to explore the topic of how AI can contribute to creativity as opposed to replacing it. Improve your health and well-being, increase your safety and security, and become a more engaged citizen. And what I really liked was that Gemini said, because I gave it context, which you should always do when you're using one of these LLMs, you shouldn't just ask it a basic question. You should give it a role and context and a format for the answer. And because I mentioned I was the executive director of the Austin Forum on Technology and Society, it gave me a bonus for the Austin audience. And this is a quote right here. It's a bonus for the Austin audience. Austin is a major tech hub. Being aware of tech trends is essential for understanding the city's evolving economy and job market. I thought that was pretty good. I won't comment too much on some of the images it made for me, but the text I thought it did was really quite good. As usual, and Jay has been with me for almost all of these events that we've been doing, we give some caveats, cautions, and context up front. It's tech trends, very important. We hope you've got CTOs and strategists in your organizations that are looking at these. We hope all your C-level office cares about these. We hope all your employees care about these. In 1 hour, we're clearly not going to cover everything. And even the things we cover, we're not going to get into in great depth. Again, our Austin Forum programming will get into many of these topics in much greater depth in 2025. Sorry. Yeah, all right. Well, I'm not going to invent time travel for this, but I did edit most of this slide, and then I forgot to edit the dates on it. So yes, in 2025, we'll be doing these things. Again, we will not be providing sound investment guidance, although Jay has periodically in previous years pointed out that he recommended buying Bitcoin a long time ago and usually has a valuation of how much you would have made if you'd listened to him when we gave that one a while ago. But we never want you to hold it against us if you don't make money. Now, of course, there's networking after this, and we'll be at a bar, and people will be drinking whiskey. So maybe you'll get some investment advice out of us unofficially later after this. But in this presentation, we won't do that. So a quick review. Normally, I don't review our 2024 predictions, but I wanted to go back and get that previous slide that I then forgot to update the years on. And so I saw all of our predictions. So I thought, okay, now I'm curious. I'm going to go through and see what we predicted last year. And last year, we gave the panelists the charge of naming 2 technologies they thought would be important in the year ahead and 1 in the years after that. So the first 6 bullets are the technologies they thought would be important. Climate tech, generative AI grows up, AI gets conversational, digital convergence. You might hear a little bit about that tonight. Competitive commercialization of space. We got most of these right. I was a little disappointed how right we got the disinformation one, and a little disappointed about how not right we got the climate tech advances, although I'm going to talk about one of those that you won't think of as a climate tech, but kind of is. I'll talk about one of those later tonight. But the AI gets conversational. I think we nailed that. The generative AI grows up. I think we nailed that, although tonight we're going to talk about the usage of these technologies. So I think we did pretty well last year, and I hope we do as well for next year. We also talked about some things with beyond 2024 impact. Blockchain really starting to matter. It's been one of those really interesting and powerful technologies that its advocates think is transformational and world-changing, and everybody else thinks it's a technology in search of a problem. I think you're going to hear some more about that tonight, too. We believe that it absolutely does matter. We just question whether we'd see the game-changing innovations in 2024 or whether they might happen in 2025. Revolutionizing brain health was one that everybody was a fan of, Neuralink and those kinds of things, but we didn't figure we would see tremendous impact from that in 2024. We've seen a couple of interesting results, but not yet any kind of widespread impact. So we still think that one's on the horizon. And the confluence of AI, quantum computing, and synthetic biology. We had a great online book discussion about Mustafa Suleiman's The Coming Wave. And everybody loved that book discussion, but we all realized this was a multi-year convergence that is just beginning right now that will be truly transformational, but wasn't going to be in 2024. So with that, I'm happy to introduce the first expert up here, and that is Jimmy Pike. He was a senior fellow at Dell and one of only 2 senior fellows at Dell while I was there. Long history in technology. He has done a little bit of everything, hardware and software. He is really now interested in small devices and AI models and things. And so he's going to talk about 2 tech trends that are really 2 sides of the same coin. With that, please welcome Jimmy Pike.
Thank you. As I get my you've talked too long meter going here. Is that good? Okay, we're good. So yeah, I want to talk about the impact of AI in 2025. This doesn't mean it stops in 2025, obviously, but it'll go on for a while. I broke it up into two pieces. I don't know which one's first. This is good. The professional is first. So these are the things that impact professional life in 2025. As I say, I'll explain how these came to be part of this presentation in just a moment. So the idea is AI as a collaborative partner. That's certainly the way we want it to go. If you're trying to use AI as a tool, you will get usage that makes sense from AI as a tool. But if you use it as a collaborative partner, you'll get an extraordinarily larger return on your investment of time. Workforce adaptation, this is going to be a big deal. Changing the workforce, if you look at what's going on, some jobs will be displaced. How will we deal with that? The idea of responsible strategy, what will the corporate strategy be? How will we take care of that? And then, of course, the one that I think is first on most everyone's mind is the idea of how ethics are going to evolve and what's going to happen with AI. We will begin to see that in the future. So these are the ones that we'll see in 2025. Let's talk about, oh, good, it worked. So clearly, transportation is going to be a big deal in everybody's professional life in 2025. We'll get better traffic management. We already have the ability to have navigation in our cars that is extraordinary. If it wasn't for me, I don't think I could find anything anymore, especially as fast as Austin changed. Virtual assistants. This is going to be a big deal as well. You see it beginning to be embedded in all of the packages, Microsoft with their idea about Copilot, Gemini, and Google, all the packages that have AI embedded in them that allow you to do things much differently. As we look forward for the adaptation of the workforce, we're going to see AI-powered learning, learning that where the AI is actually helping create the courses and helping create the work that occurs. And it's going to be extraordinarily impactful because I believe this will be, if we have the wherewithal in our educational system to incorporate AI into it, it will have a remarkable impact. The idea of having assistant tools that will drive a hybrid learning experience where it is both AI and the physical classroom kind of thing. And I think these are going to be really, really pivotal as we go forward. Healthcare, AI managed healthcare, that's big for me right now. I'll be 70 years old in a few days. And the idea of AI helping me stay healthy is something I pay a good bit of attention to. So the idea of having your exercise, the health regimens that you have, et cetera, that's going to be a big deal. Finance. I'm looking forward to the day where I can say, hey, well, insert your favorite AI. What's my current balance? How many outstanding obligations do I have left to pay this month? And how much cash do I have on hand? We're going to see that Friday in 2025. There are a couple of companies that are investigating, experimenting with that right now. You may have an application where you talk to your bank account and it tells you things like that. Yes. Okay. So I have a condition that's called fading right arm. So if I'm not touching the microphone before this is over, it'll be somewhere around my knees. So I'll try to do much better. Household smart AI systems, the ability to have things managed for you so that it doesn't take the professional's time away and you can do other things. And then, of course, the idea of how we're going to incorporate AI transparently, that's a big deal, especially in the ethics world, of how you can guarantee the AI can tell you what it's doing and not only what it's doing, but why it's doing. Now, these are the more or less consensus sides of things that we'll see in 2025. And I know I'm going a little bit fast, but you'll see why in just a minute. So, okay. All right. This is the, there is a title up there somewhere that says contentious. So these are the contentious things that we'll see in 2025. Investments that are managed by AI. That's going to be a big question with how we deal with that, because they're pretty fast. And being able to outpace the human guys, the people who have access to that, that's going to be a really contentious piece. Affordable solutions. A lot of areas have economic disadvantages. How we create an environment where they can get the benefit of AI, both in the profession and personal world. That's going to be a big thing for us to talk about in 2025. The role of corporations in the workforce. Who is going to help retrain that? Is it going to be government? Is it going to be the responsibility of society in some fashion? There are going to be a lot of people who are going to want to know how to do the new jobs that emerge and be able to retrain over the other jobs. And is this a private public partnership? This is going to be a very contentious topic this year about what do you do with people who have been trained in something and AI has displaced their jobs, and now there are new roles that they want to have. That's going to be a big cultural thing we're going to have to deal with. Corporate responsibility, clarity of the roles with the boundaries of AI augmentation. How do you define a profession where it's using AI and the contribution of the individuals are involved? New roles for supporting. How do you deal with people who want to take the emerging professions that enable AI capabilities to do stuff that we hadn't ever been able to do? That in I think the dog barked at me. In 2025, that's going to be a real question. And then, of course, there is the one where defining what the minimum standards are for how you deal with AI, what fairness looks like. How do you plan and how do you deal with the things that are so fast? The cross-section collaboration where technology, ethics, and policymakers intersect. And how do we make that more affordable? Okay, so this is my presentation, and it went through pretty quick. So let me see how well did I do. So 7 minutes. I used it almost all, didn't I? Okay. So this is the other part of the presentation. This is the real story. That presentation that you just saw was actually a collaboration of me and ChatGPT. And the way that presentation came is when I started this out, I said, this is a broad topic, but I don't know how. This is a broad topic that I'm going to bring my own microphone next time. This is a broad topic I don't know how to deal with because there's so many facets of this. I'm a techno geek, so I'll give you a list of tools and how to use them. But if you're looking for the real impact of a profession, this is how I think it came out. So what I did is I asked ChatGPT how you do this. And it said, why don't you create a panel? And I said, okay, who would be on the panel? And she suggested, I'm sorry, I shouldn't use I have a female voice on my ChatGPT, so sorry. But it suggested that there was an industry specialist. I got that one. The idea of ethics. I did not. Okay, thank you. Thank you there. Thank you. It was a nondescript voice of a human origin. And this is where I wound up. Also, I added a futurist and I added an umpire, which was me. The reason I did that is this is the second time I did it. The first time I couldn't make it work. But I went back and redid it the second time. And so how this turned out is we started with a discussion. This is a sample. I'm sorry. This is the objectives that I gave it. So let's discuss this. So I've got these 8 personalities that are defined by ChatGPT using these qualifications that are attached to each one of the personalities. And lo and behold, this is a sample of the discussion. We did a round robin and every participant talked about what they were interested in and the expertise that they brought. And we did this about 6 times. And after the 6th time, this is what the facilitator said. So, you probably got everything you're looking for here. Do you want to go on or are you ready to stop? I said, well, I'm ready to quit. And it said, okay, we recommend that we have no more guidance or no more discussion. And what you saw was those things that went on those first 2 slides were actually the artifact of a live conversation with those synthetic experts. And I was shocked by it. I had no idea. And I've learned that this is the really, best way to take advantage of the AI is for you to give those experts personalities and have a conversation just like you and I are talking here. And so this is what happened. Now, also, I said, is there anybody on the panel that didn't feel like they were well represented? Guess what? There was. And I said, okay, you guys want to create a minority report? And guess what? They did. And so it was as if I were sitting in the room with 8 experts talking about this. And this was an eye opener to me. I now completely remapped the way that I'm going to do my work with AI in the future. And at the end of this, I said, okay, can you create a comprehensive conversational report of what we just did? It's there, and we'll make sure it's in the capability. And then at the end of that, I said, can you create a comprehensive report that describes, starting with the selection of the panel, how we went through the process? And guess what? It's there too. So I was literally blown away by what I was able to do. And I think this truly shows the impact of what AI is going to have on the professional lives in 2025, because it's certainly going to impact mine. So that was my first topic. You want me to go to the next one, Jay? So the next one was the idea of the impact in the personal life. This was a lot simpler. So as we look at what's going on today, we see AI starting, of course, in transportation. So I am an Apple iPhone guy, and I love nothing more to get in my truck with CarPlay and say, "Hey, take me so and so," and I wind up knowing how to get there. That's pretty cool. Household devices. What you see here is someone talking to their Nest thermostat. Set this temperature at 72 degrees, and please don't bother me anymore about it. The idea of an assistant, the ability for me to call my assistant and say, tell me what's going on this week on my calendar, and do I have anything urgent today? That exists now. And the ability to say, clear Friday afternoon, and make sure everybody in my family has that reserved because we're going on a picnic. You can do that today. Now, starting this, I already mentioned the impact of finance and what we're going to see with respect to having finances done a lot more automatically for us. And then, of course, health, again, the ability to have healthcare monitoring as our population ages, the ability to have warnings of things that you need to take advantage of, and the opportunity for you to have interactive healthcare with someone who might not be a person at all. That's kind of cool. And then, of course, the last one I'll show up there is learning. I think, again, learning could have the greatest impact on our society of all if we have the wherewithal to do it. Because I can learn, I'm an old man, and I can learn more by having an interactive conversation with an AI than I can by reading a book. Because I can ask it questions that are a little bit different from what the book might say. And I am really convinced that interactive learning with an AI and perhaps a human instructor, that could have an extraordinary impact on our lives. And now, the thing that I think that is one of the biggest things that makes it happen. How many cell phones or smartphones you think there are in the world? 5 billion. What is the most ubiquitous appliance in modern history? Smartphone. What is the most ubiquitous way that we as human creatures talk, communicate, talk, speech? So now I got a smartphone that I can talk to, and something on the other end that's capable of taking what I just said and at least making some sense out of it, perhaps more challenging with some than others. The ability to talk on text as we, to talk as we are accustomed to on the phone, the ability to text, and the ability to use it in a fashion that's consistent with how we've become accustomed to in the workplace. Those are the contextual awareness that we're going to begin to see, where it goes from one to the other without you even having to be concerned about it. So this was one thing I forgot. How can you click on that and make it go? Were generated by AI. I put them together because I couldn't figure out how to get one to do both. But the idea, I just told what I started out as, I said, I want you to create something that's like Surfing USA. Well, that ain't it, but that's as close as I got, and I ran out of time. So I can't imagine anything that's going to have more impact than generative AI on pleasure and entertainment, especially when it comes to being able to do stuff like that with just a few simple sentences. And that is Oh, I wanted to show you this. It doesn't always come out exactly correct. You'll notice that there's a challenge here that perhaps there's a hand I don't really understand there. And it's always good to have two left hands. I've been accused of that. You know, so it's not always correct. But even with it being inaccurate, there is a great amount of value that it brings to take. People talk to me and say, well, it'll hallucinate a lot. They say, yeah. And I have gone down real big rat holes from a hallucination from an AI. But nevertheless, I wound up being better off because I had the AI. In fact, I'll give you in my personal life what I have observed. I can get to a draft work that I'm trying to do 10 to 20 times faster when I've got an AI involved than if I'm trying to do it alone. So with that, I've cut Jay's time to a remarkable challenge, I'm sure. But anyway, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jimmy.
Sorry, man.
So Jimmy's assignment was to cover two tech trends, and he said AI for professional use, and he said, "What's your other one going to be?" He said, "Oh, AI for personal use." So I guess that counts, and I really appreciated that. And he and I've had some great conversations with this. How many of you were at December's Austin Forum event, by the way? So not many. I encourage you to also go to our YouTube channel and look at Brian Jacobs' dedicated presentation on how he uses AI as a professional. And he really changed me and Jimmy's way of looking at this. And, you know, at first it seems like magic. Then once you know how neural networks work and LLMs, then you get a little put off by it because you realize it's a statistical model. But then once you realize how to use it and how much information has been encoded into it, it never makes its way back to magic. But you then begin to realize, wow, a lot of the world's information is encoded into this. And if you can put attention on the right part of the neural network with a clever use of prompts, you can really get some extraordinary things out of it, especially for learning, collaboration on high-end things. And in fact, the Austin Forum February online book discussion is going to be Jeff Woods, the author of the New York Times bestseller, The AI-Driven Leader. And he does exactly what Jimmy did here. He encourages you to have these virtual teammates and even have them question you to pull the best out of you for these things. It's a really interesting way of using these LLMs. So for the next two technology trends, I'm happy to introduce longtime friend and colleague Jay Williams. He is currently CTO and founder of Architar. He has been the CEO and CTO of a number of startups, big career in CA before that and other large companies. Also, I think something he doesn't brag on enough is he's played a large role in a lot of standards bodies. He's done a lot of the behind the scenes work on the plumbing of the internet and all of these standards that we sort of take for granted and literally treat like plumbing. We hope we don't have to know how some of these things work and how they are secure. But Jay has been involved in a lot of that in his life. So I think he might be the most comprehensive computing technologist I know. Please welcome Jay Williams.
Hi, everybody. Mic test. Good. Well, my presentation is going to be a little different. Jimmy's is awesome because the breadth of what we're all confronting every day, we can't even see it. And so I'm going to try to talk about it in a couple of ways that we all see it. We don't feel it as much yet, but it's there. First one we pretty much all know about. Assuming I can do the magic here. Fire. There we go. Good. I'm going to talk about digital markets, or as I said, how I learned to love cryptocurrencies and their friends. How many people here have ever owned a cryptocurrency? It's pretty high. It's pretty high. The fact is every single person in this room owns some form of digital currency for sure. Okay, whether it's a cryptocurrency or something else, you'll find out over time. I mean, it's unbelievable today, as you'll see in the numbers and things that go through here. I'm a numbers guy, so I do a lot of stuff with numbers, and I'm going to show you quite a few, but they're all important and interesting numbers. So the first thing is, as Jay pointed out earlier, I always like to remind people that have come to the Austin Forum, who was here in 2017? Anybody? Got a few? Got a few? Well, what happened in 2017? Well, that's the first time Bitcoin broke $1,000. 2017. As you probably know, this is from yesterday because, you know, had to make a slide at some point. It's been over $100,000. It's down a little bit now, 94 or 5,000. I don't know. Somebody can probably tell us a real-time number right now. But let's just say it's 100 times what it was in 2017. It's the fastest appreciated currency in the history, as far as we know, of currency in the world. And I put a little chart on the price history up there, which is kind of interesting. Again, if everybody looks at this later, it might be interesting to go through. I'm not going to spend the time to take you through each part of this. The important thing about this is not so much Bitcoin in and of itself, although we could talk about that for quite a bit. The important part of this is about the impact it has on the rest of the world. So let's see if we can do that. Here we are. So what you're seeing over on one side over there is the $4 trillion market for all cryptocurrencies, not just Bitcoin, all cryptocurrencies. What you're seeing over here on the right is the total amount of balance sheet in the United States Federal Reserve. $6.4 trillion in there. The cryptocurrency market is 4 trillion. The Fed is 6 trillion. I'm just going to be quiet for another second while everybody processes that. I mean, so then if you look down here in the corner, this is the central bank balance sheet of basically all of the other, major banks. What you'll notice is, what's the third largest central bank in the world? Bitcoin. Well, all the cryptocurrencies put together. Third largest currency in the world. You don't see that on the headlines every day. You don't even think about it. We just go about what we're doing and we don't understand what's going on there. How many people here understand how cryptocurrencies work? It's a lot of brave people. We're going to have a little talk later. I got a quiz. The other chart that's down underneath the bottom over here is the DeFi marketplace. How many people know what DeFi stands for? Decentralized finance. What's that? Well, that's kind of like the derivatives market for cryptocurrency. In some ways, there are several different things that go in decentralized finance that are different because it's a different world. How many people know what the derivatives market in securities is and everything else around currencies and the global exchange markets? Those are $27 trillion, right, in those markets. So this DeFi market over here is only about $1.7 trillion or something like that right now. These numbers are huge, right? These numbers are colossal. And so what does that mean, for all of us? Well, here's the digital payments worldwide market. In 2024, $17.7 trillion in digital payments. This is your Venmos, your PayPals, your transactions, everything that you do. In 2029 on this market, it's $36 trillion. So again, if you start thinking about how much actual fiat currency is in circulation across all of those banks, about $20 trillion or so, and the amount of digital payments in the world, you come up with some pretty interesting numbers. So the first thing that this brings us to understand is that, our world is digital. You can forget it. I don't care how many Krugerrands you have tucked away somewhere, or how many quarters are in that jar by the bed. And I have a lot. I like that jar, man. I have a ton of stuff in my jar. But the interesting thing is that there is no payment in the world that's not digital. Every single thing that we do, prices for all currencies and all the derivatives are set and traded by digital markets. There are no people sitting around waving around a paper ticker anywhere in the world left to do these things. You heard all of Jimmy's discussion about the AI impact on these kind of things and what they're going to do. Who do you think is going to figure those market prices? Us? No. Us are not going to figure those out. Why? Because it's too damn complex. How many people in here can count to 27 trillion? Right? How long would it take us if we all started counting different sections? We'd all long be gone before we finished that task. We pay and are paid digitally, and we have been for years. For years. When was the last time anybody got paid in cash legally? So, so the fact is, the merging of our digital physical worlds have passed the point of no return, right? We're done. We're done with this concept. We still carry it around with us. We pretend we got a wallet. I got one around here somewhere. It's got some plastic things in it and stuff. But, we like to pretend somehow that they're bags of money. And if you watch cartoons and things like that, you see them, you still see, you know, cartoon bags of money and things going around. I even watched, I can't remember what movie it was, but I watched some movie the other day where they're robbing an armored car, you know, and the guys are running out with, you know, all of the money in the bags and everything. And I'm like, what are you going to do with that? Because you know it's all marked and tracked, right? I mean, there's an Apple tag in that bag, bro. I mean, you're not getting very far, right? And so, you know, it's just you can't even make those movies anymore because it's ridiculous, right? It's not how it happens or how it's going to work. And so you're going to see how this leads into some of the other discussion. If you start thinking about it in the context of everything Jimmy just talked about, you know, we can't really think about the world. People are like, oh, AI, that's coming. Or, oh, so-and-so's coming. Or, oh, I'm not going to worry about that digital stuff, right? When we first started working on the internet and we started doing what became to be called e-commerce, people would go around all the time and they would go, I'm not putting my damn credit card on the internet. No, hell no. Somebody's going to steal it if I put it on the internet. I'm like, where were you last night? I was over at the club for men. And I'm like, oh, you were? And what did you do when you were done? Did you give that nice person your credit card? And they went back and did what with? They swiped it on a piece of carbon paper and you signed it on a 4-ply piece of carbon paper. So they had a copy of the number and your signature, and then you left. Oh, but you're not going to put it on the internet. I got it. I understand. Yes. The internet's way more dangerous. How many people credit card is on the internet? All right, everybody just raise your hands. Come on now. Everybody knows you got your credit card and something on the internet. Your whole bank account's on the internet, right? So we've passed that state to where we're no longer, you know, physical people. We're physical and digital people. That was Jay's reference to the phygital world, which I personally hate. But the phygital world of those kind of things feels like it's one of those things my son has. It's the fidget spinner thing. So we are all digital beings, whether we like it or not, right? We like to pretend we're not. We like to pretend we're all physical and all these kinds of things. But think about it right now. There's stuff going on related to you right this minute in the digital world. How many people have picked up their phone not to answer Jay's questions, just to see what's going on in your digital world while you've been sitting here at the show? We all have, right? We all do it, right? We do it all the time. See, there he is. He's doing it right now. So, but my point is, we all do it all the time. Why? Because it's part of us. It's who we are. It's exactly the same as when people began to be literate, right? There was a time when less than 0.5% of the world was literate. Couldn't read anything, couldn't recognize a word, couldn't do a thing. But suddenly people began to be literate. People started to get printed material from the press. People started to talk about it. People started to circulate it. People started to collect it. People started to do all kinds of things with the written word that had never been done before. We're entering such an age now to where all of those things, right? We use representations of paper all the time, right? Our emails are still structured from, to, you know, all of those things. All of those little parts are going to follow us along into this adventure. That's why I call it the myth of the physical world. When Apple designed, you know, the original OS, they put a file folder on it, right? They did all kinds of things that made it seem familiar. But listen, I've looked at y'all's desktops and you guys don't know what the hell a file folder is. Everybody's got papers all over the place. If your actual desk looked like that, you know, you couldn't find anything. Luckily, there's a search function, you know? So the fact is, the world's changed. And I'm going to basically look at the social aspects of what, you know, we've been talking about. So we're all social animals. That comes from a saying from Aristotle that says, you know, basically all of us are cattle. And what he said when he said all of us were cattle, it's in the politics, you can look it up, he actually said that, was basically that we're a social animal in the sense that we all work in the form of a community, our networks, our things that we do. That's never changed. It's been the same forever, as long as we've been here as humans. And nowadays, we can actually count it. So there's 5.2 billion social media user identities. The love thing about this slide, which I'll talk about later, it says up at the top, note, user identities may not represent unique individuals. And that is one of our greatest challenges today, is because right now I'm looking at a whole pile of the one thing in the world that cannot be copied, right? Every form of currency, everything else we have, there are copies of. But the one thing that's unique on the earth is you, the self, us. And how do we preserve that as we go forward? Because we're all going to be in the digital world. We already established that. So now how do we understand, our unique nature, and how do we represent that, and how do we protect that, and how do we translate the legal structures that we've created in the physical world into the digital world? So as we look through these numbers, I just love, thinking at some of these numbers because we don't really think about it a lot. If you look at the average daily time spent using social media, 2 hours and 19 minutes. 2 hours and 19 minutes out of the day. That's a lot, right? And this is, by the way, using social media, not necessarily for work purposes. It's just for general purposes in terms of how we do it. And it's not evenly distributed when you look at larger models of these kinds of things. Average number of social platforms used each month, 6.8. We have to use 7 different platforms to be able to basically communicate with everybody that we hang out with in the world. Some of those are consumption platforms, and I'm not talking about streaming services like HBO and things like that. I'm talking about WhatsApp. I'm talking about TikTok. I'm talking about YouTube. I'm talking about Twitch. I'm talking about those kinds of social interactions. And when you get down to the, social media user identities aged 18 plus, 86.3%. Well, thank goodness kids don't lie about their age. I'm pretty sure that number includes quite a few people that are less than 18 years old because we don't have proper age gates. We don't have proper understanding of how all of that works. We simply don't. It's impossible. So the other thing that starts to happen as we do all this is we have to figure out if we're real. So I picked The Rock. I picked on The Rock over here. Here's a free Instagram fake follower checker. So here's our friend The Rock here. He's got 396 million followers, right? Followers, 396 million, 400 million people who care what The Rock does every day. I would be scared to death if 40 people cared what I was doing every day, right? Much less 400 million. I wouldn't even get out of bed. I'd be like, I don't want anybody to know what I'm doing. 10% of those, this particular thing classes as suspicious followers. The actual number is probably closer to 20%. So 20% of those followers aren't even real people, right? They're not just bots. There are all kinds of ways that things and such follow us and become that. And by the way, this is calculated before what's going to happen with the AI revolution going through here. Who's going to even figure that out? How are you going to tell? How are you going to sort those things out? How are you going to even know who's following you or who's doing anything with you? Who has more than 10,000 followers on social media in here? Anybody? Well, okay. This is okay. We won't out you. It's okay. But interesting things happen when you get more than a few thousand followers, right? Once you get up to 10,000 followers, right, they start to own you, right? They start to drive your behavior. They start to impact the way you do things. Particularly if you're like the 200 million people that are creators today. They define themselves as creators. They act like creators. They build things for other people. 200 million people. We talk about new professions that are going to come out in AI and things. They're already here, right? The creator economy is one of the largest economies. It's the largest shift that we've ever done anywhere. So who knows what this thing underneath here is? Anybody? This is the orb. This is WorldCoin's solution to this problem. So what it does is it basically scans your iris and creates a token out of it, a WorldCoin token, which will then be stored, and it will then be used for identity and everything else, and your social value can be attached to it. So the more followers you have, the more things you do online, the more you contribute, then your iris becomes more valuable. Well, as you can probably imagine, there's a few things, problems and stuff around there. Like, we're not very good at protecting things, as you can just watch every single day is every part of your history, medical information, financial information, everybody else, is basically, lost by some major corporation every day. So while it is true that that is on the blockchain, and while it is true that it's protected in many different ways, how many people are 100% confident that no one but WorldCoin will ever have access to your iris identity? Right. None of us. So needless to say, there's also legislation around privacy and all kinds of things. Ms. Liz Wiley's back over here. You can talk to her about all of that and things like that if you're interested in what's going on in the world of privacy and regulatory environments around protecting our identity and those things. But this over here is actually very interesting. How about this cool guy that with his date in the back of the truck here having some popcorn? The only problem with this picture is, like Jimmy's pictures, it ain't real, and he's not real. They just found out basically, or they said it, but nobody noticed. Facebook basically put out quite a few different profiles that they started in 2023 to experiment with how they could build AI personas that no one would know they were personas. This is one of those actual, personas. And what you see down here is a program called Ada, which basically is a reasoning engine that you can license today if you're an enterprise, which builds your realistic AI avatars and chatbots so that people who are dealing with your customer service, with your financial people, with everybody else, will believe they're dealing with a real person. And by the way, I've worked through that, you can't tell the difference. In fact, they're far better than most than most people you might generally get in customer service today. I know there's a couple of people out in the audience that know all about this, so I'm not going to call on you. So, but my point is, this is real. It's today. This is old. Heck, this is a post from 11 June 2024. This was, a year ago, everybody could do all of this. Imagine what we're going to do this year. It's crazy. It's crazy, the amount that's going on and on. So the one thing this proves to us, and again, Jimmy pointed some of this out, is that it no longer is intelligence the definition of just a human, right? We're going to have different intelligences in the world with us. It used to be, how did you figure out if you're a human? Well, we do a CAPTCHA. I'm going to, solve a 2 + 2 is 4 math problem, or I'm going to drag a puzzle piece over and put it in there because, only humans can do that. That's it. It's over, right? Any AI pretty much worth its salt today can do any of those CAPTCHAs that are out there today. Oh, well, I'm going to have my SMS phone number, so I'm going to use two-factor authentication to protect myself. Is there anybody that believes that that actually works? I hate to bust your bubble. It doesn't work. They use that so they can track you with your IMEI in your phone. Okay, it's not really used for security. Does it help? Yeah, it's like having an extra password. But how many people's passwords have been cracked here? Anybody? No, nobody's ever gotten anybody's password that's here. Well, I like brave people that admit that. Trust me, all your passwords belong to us. So passwords not going to work, especially when it comes to identity. When it comes to who you are, you're going to use a password on yourself. How are you going to protect your identity with a password? No, can't work. Biometrics? Maybe. We can talk about it. But more importantly, the first thing we have to figure out is what we call validation, which is, who are you? Are you human or not? How are we going to identify those people that are not humans that are intelligent? Are they people? Are they machines? Are they programs? Are they systems? What are we going to call them? We don't even know. Jay mentioned that we're going to talk about, things that are going to affect us right now. These are going to affect us right now and for the next 10 years while we figure out the definitions. He mentioned that, I work on a lot of standards. So I've been talking to everybody in every aspect of how we transport all of the information around, how we identify, how does one person acknowledge another person? How do we know proof of personhood and all of those kinds of things? How are we going to figure those things out? I will tell you right now, we don't know. That is our biggest challenge that's coming up in 2025 right now, to figure those things out. Are you who you say you are? Are you authorized to do something? Is it you or your agent? This great technology is going to be awesome. You're going to be able to have your agent go do everything for you. Well, how do you authorize that? How do we know if it's authorized? We're going to use electric signature. So we don't know. We don't know the answer to those things. What did you say you did? Right? When, how, and with whom? Are you really an MIT graduate? Where did you go to school? How many people believe LinkedIn is always true? Okay. I know I get a chuckle out of that, right? But that's how we do it today, right? I'm going to go check their LinkedIn and we see where they went and what they did. The answer is there's no form of certification that actually goes on there. So I sit on a couple of committees at the W3C, which is one of the governing committees that does all of this stuff. We talk about this stuff all the day. Do we have solutions for those things? I'd like to say yes, For some things we do, we have some ideas around decentralized identity. We have some ideas around verifiable credentials. Getting those implemented into the world and getting those implemented into the tools that we use every day, especially at the speed that all of this is moving, is very hard. It's harder than it's ever been. It was easier to build HTML 1.0 than it is to do some of the things we're doing today. So we talk about digital society. There's thousands of books out there titled Digital Society. There's all kinds of things. The fact is that word digital is gone, right? It's just society now. There's no more digital society versus something else, or, I'm going to decide to do email, or I'm going to decide to do this or that, or I'm going to adopt AI, or I'm going to do things. I mean, your car's got more AI in it than, anything that you have. And the fact is, I put up Samuel Morse's first telegraph message because a lot of people define that as the first time, we actually took the human condition and put it into an electrical condition where we actually sent a message that was not conducted by the human voice or by the human hand or by human material. It was conducted by this little ticky device right here, which created its own language, Morse code, as it was called back then. And what was the first thing that was sent? Everybody knows, Watson, come here, I need you. But more importantly, what did he say? He said, what hath God wrought? Because everyone standing around, when they watched this, knew that the world had changed. And that's where we are again today in 2025. We are like the Gutenberg press was discovered a year or two ago, and it's starting to produce things. The telegraph, tick, 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 and sent a message. Congress funded, by the way, the project after that because they realized the tactical advantage of being able to do that. We constructed a telegraph line from one coast to the other, which brought everybody together. So really all we're doing now is it's just the future becoming every day. It's going to come so fast at us from now on that, it's simply going to be every day. Thanks.
All right. Jay and Jimmy are going to come back up here in a second when we get to Q&A. And actually, we're going to have a little bit more discussion as well. But so it's my turn. And I told Jimmy and Jay they could each do 2 technology topics. And I would just do one because I did that opening context and everything. So I thought about the things that I might want to cover. And one was actual, real, significant professional usage of generative AI. But Jimmy covered that. And Brian covered it last month, and Jeff Woods is going to cover it next month. So I hope that you absorb all of this content, ask us questions, et cetera. I think that one's a foregone conclusion. A person that I generally agree with, Gary Marcus, wrote an article disagreeing with this thought the other day. It's one of the few times I've disagreed with Gary Marcus, but he says that it's yet to prove its value, and he thinks that the luster is fading. I think it's just, remember, ChatGPT is only, 2 years and 2 months old? I mean, it was practically just invented. So I'm not quite sure what that is. Okay. All right. AI-powered health tech. I think this is going to be an incredibly important area, but Jimmy also touched on that a little bit, and we're definitely going to dive into that more this year. I remember a great Scott Galloway presentation when someone asked him, how do you choose the startups you invest in? And he said, well, I usually look for the most transformational technology, and I look for the worst service that people are experiencing in their daily life, and I figure out who's investing in the intersection of those 2 things. And then he put up a slide of an AI circle and a healthcare circle intersecting each other, and he said, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's where I'm going to invest a lot in the coming years. I thought about talking about podcasts and more segmented media. Jay kind of covered that a little bit, a little less than I thought he was going to from previous questions, but because of time, I get it. But you're already seeing this. You saw podcasts become treated on par with traditional media in this last election cycle. You're seeing these social networks begin to, what's the right word? Define public opinion, but also attract and send people. I mean, people are leaving these if they don't like that network, attracting people who do like that network. So you're starting to see that maybe there doesn't just have to be one Twitter. Maybe there's a Twitter and a Threads and a Blue Sky, and these have different audiences. So I don't think we're going to think anymore about there's the one of these social media. But I thought, well, the two that I would probably try to cover are, it's coming. The agentic AI and edge computing leading to AI everywhere, ambient AI and robotics, and including more cars and factory machines. And in fact, we've got a robot in the room over here, which I think is going to come towards me. Is that right? Where's the draw? Oh, there he is. You're going to send that robot over here so everybody can see it? So I think we're going to see a lot more robotic devices, but I'm not going to talk about that for my energy topic either, especially since he's got a robot here and you can talk to him afterwards in networking. The thing I'll talk about is nuclear energy, and which I do hope that I look at this as more of a important in 2025 for impact that grows in the years after it. But you're already reading a lot about the recovery of nuclear energy in America. And I'll talk about that on the next slide and why that's important. And real simply, it relates to everything that Jay and Jimmy already talked about. They didn't talk about the energy that powers these things, but the amount of energy used in an AI inference with ChatGPT is an order of magnitude higher than in a Google search. So we're all using these free or semi-free services that use a tremendous amount of energy. What's powering all this? Well, huge numbers of data centers are being built. In Texas is one of the leading data center states. Around Northern Virginia is the capital of data centers in the US. And now we're seeing that data center growth, they keep upping this projection, but the latest projections are for needing to add 128 gigawatts of power over the next 5 years to power these new data centers, most of which are doing AI and related things. The recent COP29 conference, they talked about the goal is 5x as much nuclear power by 2050 as we currently are using right now. Nuclear is clean, at least from a carbon perspective. It's continuous, unlike wind and solar, and even challenges sometimes with hydroelectric. It is safe. The safety issues have been greatly overblown. In fact, Scott Galloway said the biggest problem with nuclear is a branding problem. We never really solved that branding problem after 3 Mile Island, and we let the issue in Russia contaminate our opinion, no pun intended, a little bit about that. But the safety record of nuclear is very high. In fact, infrastructure power in France is largely nuclear based. In fact, did you know that despite how much people poo-poo nuclear power in the US, 20% of electricity in the US is actually nuclear power? When's the last time you heard about a nuclear power accident in the US? I mean, these things are safe and can be much safer. The French have a different model in which they just rinse and repeat. They use the same kinds of facilities time after time after time because they've mastered it. They know the ins and outs of it. They've reduced the number of risks and the number of things that can go wrong that they're not expecting. The US has not been quite that good about it. We have a lot of different models and blueprints we've used for these. But now there's some effort to look at these small modular reactors as a means of making these much smaller nuclear plants, but that you can build more quickly. You can rinse and repeat in the construction and really test these things thoroughly, and you can put them next to data centers. So we're starting to see Amazon, Google, Microsoft, and Meta have all announced interesting in nuclear power sources, including repurposing old plants. Did you see the news about 3 Mile Island? Worst nuclear disaster in this country ever. Remember, it wasn't actually as bad as you might have thought from watching the movies that came out after it and things like that. They're actually repurposing it for that. Japan is repurposing lots of nuclear facilities as well to keep up with this data center demand. So I found this to be one of the really interesting things. It may not affect you in a visible way in your company or organization or daily life, but in fact, it's going to affect you in all the ways Jimmy and Jay just talked about, because the power needs to be provided to keep up with this. And a lot of places are running out of carbon-based power to deploy on this incredibly rapid timescale to keep up with data center construction and data center operations. So I wanted nuclear power to make a comeback for 20 years for carbon reasons. Turns out it's making a comeback for AI reasons, but the net effect will still be good for carbon reasons. And so I made a list of the top 10 things that I thought would be interesting this year. And Jimmy already sort of gave you the punchline. These things are, the LLMs are really good at text. They're really not so great at images, and they're really terrible at images of text. So they get that wrong a lot. So these were not my top 10. I did not predict that Belth Tech or Newbot Tech, although interesting name for a robot company. I don't know what the top of that is. Thop of Agent or so or something. This one, Rise AI Robotibs, it's close over there. Biotech, not quite sure what that is. It did get nuclear energy right though, so I wanted to keep it in since that was the technology I talked about. And I just hope that in 2025, these image generation things that have text in them use other AI that recognizes text images, which was one of the first successes in using AI in image classification, was to recognize handwritten digits on zip codes. And we've been solving that problem for decades. So I hope that we'll combine some of these AIs so that some of my images won't have such crappy labels. I did really enjoy Jimmy's highly productive workers with 2 left hands on their left arm and 3 arms total. And by the way, both left hands were using a smartphone. I assume one was a personal smartphone and one was a work smartphone, but possible they had 2 jobs and were doing both of those at the same time as well. Which technologies are you excited about in 2026, but whose impact is likely beyond 2025 at least? And I want to bring Jimmy and Jay back up here with their microphones to talk about this. And I'd like to get their take, not descriptions, but just some technologies that they think are going to have a significant impact in the second half of the decade, maybe 2026, maybe by the end of the decade. You all have been coming to the Austin Forum, know the one that I'm going to say. I wish it was in 2025. I wish the impact of quantum computing was going to be significant and mainstream in 2025. There were a number of really important achievements in the fourth quarter of 2024 that weren't like most of the quantum press releases in 2024 that all had the word game-changing, breakthrough, transformational, revolutionary, or something in the press release. And they were all important, but maybe those headlines were overstated. In the fourth quarter, there were a number of actual legitimately important advances in quantum computing, none more important than Google's announcement of its Willow chip, which all the headlines talked about being many orders of magnitude faster than classical supercomputing. That wasn't the important part of the article. That was the best part for the headline. The important part of the article is that quantum computing is inherently noisy right now, and so as promising as it is, we can't build big enough systems to do the problems that are really important yet. And part of that's because you have to overbuild the number of qubits and then create these logical, correct qubits using really crude error detection techniques, error management techniques. Google found a way to do that in a much more scalable way. And all quantum computing stocks went up. Google was famous. Their stock went up 5% after that announcement. They also announced Gemini 2.0 right around the same time, and that carried a lot of weight too. But the quantum computing industry stocks went up because that's one of the big problems in it. So that's the one that I'm most excited about reading more of those achievements in 2025. Although as much as I'm an optimist, I don't pretend any of you in this room are likely to be using a hybrid classical quantum computer in 2025. Actually, I could be wrong. Are any of you in an industry where your company is actively evaluating a quantum computer now? Logistics and operations, financial services, pharmaceutical design. We do have one over on the end. Great. I'd love to talk to you and networking about that. Jimmy, Jay, what technologies are you excited about paying attention to in 2025, but for which you think the impact is 2026 or later?
I'll go first. The one that I am most excited about, believe it or not, is nuclear energy. The ability to have these small nuclear reactors that are relatively clean compared to the rest of the generation of power in the world. I think we traded a long time ago a small amount for lethal waste with the extraordinary amount of bad waste. I wished we had done it the other way.
So mine's a little different. I'm going to stick with the printing analogy that we were using earlier. You know, once people became able to print what they wanted to, once people became able to read, it changed everything. It changed our laws. It changed our culture. It changed our structures. It changed everything we did. AI is going to be in everything. It's going to be small. It's going to be in strange places. I saw and tested the other day a leg brace. It's an exoskeleton, as they like to call it, but it actually has AI computers to help you balance and to structure things, and it fits in a pair of pants. Looks like a regular pair of pants. And for anybody that's walking challenged at all, right, that you get tired walking or those kinds of things or anything, it's going to change the way you walk because it's got an AI in there that's helping you do the balance. Cars, right? I have a new car and it has self-driving capability, and it's not a Tesla. It's a pickup truck. And it works on a mountain road without me touching the wheel. And I'm scared to death of it because I'm old, but it works. And so the fact is the things, it's a famous, Dr. Seuss book called Oh, the Places We'll Go. And that's literally how I wake up almost every day, because there's so many things coming so fast with so many people using these technologies to create things that we can't even imagine. So, it's hard to make these lists because, I think about it and I'm like, hell, I don't know. And it's like, oh, wait, Jay, you're going to go give the talk about it. You're supposed to figure this out. It's like people are so fantastic, right? And especially people that are under 30 that have grown up, in the internet age with all of these things here. Hell, I grew up on Star Trek, right? So what did we do? We went and built Star Trek, right, Jimmy? That's what we went out and did. We went and built all of those things. We built communicators. We built everything you see. There used to be an old Motorola flip phone. It looked just like the communicator on Star Trek, right? We built shuttles. I'm not, I'm trying to help him, trying to help you out
All
here.
right.
So my point is, though, we're in the same situation, right? All of y'all that are out there that are under 30, you live in a world of marvels that, it's hard to imagine what the kind of things we are going to see.
All right. When with that, I'm going to move us to the Q&A for the audience Q&A. We're going to take 5 questions from the audience. The last question wins a South by Southwest 2025 badge. Again, we are grateful to our annual partners for the support they provide, the input they provide on programming. We have great board meetings. We have, I think, the best board in Austin of any of the organizations I know about. I'm very pleased to introduce one of the newest board members, Kate Hubin of NFP. She's a vice president of NFP. Please welcome Kate. And now she's going to pick some questions that you all have submitted, and we're going to answer them very, very concisely since it's 7:35.
Okay, this question is from Craig Warthen. Do we have any idea of the timeline for AI to take control of our streetlights to improve traffic flow efficiency? Seems like it could have a major impact on our lives once implemented. Are departments of transportations looking at this use case?
I'll take the first crack at this one. I did a lot of smart cities work before the pandemic, and I will tell you that. Is there anyone from the city of Austin in here?
You can see how much trouble he's going to get in.
Yes.
Nobody watches YouTube either, right? So this, nobody will see it. Okay, fine. It's really hard to work with cities on these things. They're full of people that are great human beings. They're smart people. They want to do great things, but there's a lot of necessary regulation and possibly some extra regulation as well. Dealing with anything in rights of way is a real challenge. That being said, San Diego is doing a really interesting smart city streetlights project as well. And so people are looking at, in fact, they're looking at ways of, it's just an energy savings thing, but they're also putting other sensors on the streetlights to do other things besides provide light, because streetlights are what they call street furniture. So you have to have trash cans, you have to have streetlights, you have to have certain number of benches in various places, fire hydrants and things like that. All of that is something where you can technically put something else, some kind of sensor, right? And the street lights turn out to be a really good place to put HD cameras and other things that you can then put analytics models behind and do a lot of smart city stuff. So yes, there's some places already doing it with streetlights, but that's actually a very minor part of it. The more interesting thing is some of the other sensors they're putting on these streetlights to do other kinds of analytics. The Array of Things project in Chicago, they're using the light poles, but putting these really cool sensor apparatus devices on it that they pioneered at Argonne Lab. They outsourced then the creation of some of the devices on it. There's also a project here in Austin that Jeff DeCou is leading for intelligent infrastructure, where they have these pins, PINN, can't remember what the acronym stands for, but they're basically poles with each section is essentially a condo place where you can rent the space in there to put your sensors in that for doing different things. So yeah, there's a lot of work in that space. It's just not much here.
My prediction is all of that is gone. All the streetlights are gone, everything's gone, all of the tech will be inside of you, your phones, your cars, and everything you own, and all of that stuff will look like the old bobbies patrolling London in 1878.
I don't think Jay's worked with the city long enough in recent.
Well, the city as we know it will
What's the
change.
timescale for that, Jay?
The city as we know it will change.
That makes me so happy, just fantasizing about no
Great, me
streetlights.
too.
Okay, this question is from Alex Tranch. What are some of the ways we will see backlashes against AI manifest, and how can we as technology advocates responsibly promote its advancement?
I'll take a shot. Well, the backlash will be, there will be some jobs where it is actually less expensive for an AI to do it than a human to do it. So our capitalist society will drive for that. And we'll see bad actors who will make that be a political statement. We'll see a variety of things like that. But we have to face the fact that it's coming. There's not a don't stand in front of the train hollering stop, because you're not going to be very effective at it. What we have to do as a society is figure out how we work together to make these things be beneficial as opposed to destructive.
We will have riots. We will have people tearing down things. Data centers will be blown up and burned. If you look at the Middle Ages, the first threshing machines, when they were put out in the fields, the farmers destroyed them every single time. They ripped them apart. This is where all of the Luddites and those kind of things come from, because they were rejecting that technology because it was changing not just their job, their way of life. And we're going to see those same kind of negative reactions to all of these kind of things we're talking about.
Did you know that when the incandescent light bulb was created, people believed that artificial light would kill you?
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree with Jay. I think there's a couple of really challenging societal things. One is when people lose jobs, because it's when they lose their means of taking care of themselves and their families. And lots of technologies have had job destruction. A lot of the people who look back in time at the historical things will point out, oh, but more jobs got created. That wasn't of much consolation to the actual individuals who lost their jobs, who are the ones that will have the problem with it. And I understand that. In fact, this is something that Craig Wheeler in the audience here and I have been on podcasts talking about, that the rate of job destruction is probably going to be much quicker when the rate of the tools is moving much faster and changing much faster. You didn't used to have to retrain in your career. You usually trained for a career. Now you're going to be retraining many, many times, and there's many opportunities for you to get bumped out of it by technology change. So I think that's a really challenging thing. Fortunately, lifelong learning programs, access, in fact, you should all be using ChatGPT to learn. There's lots of great content in there that has been coded in from textbooks and scholars and other things. So use it for all the good that it can do. And you can really actually learn to keep up with this. I actually learned a lot of quantum computing from LLMs, because it turns out there are no trolls in quantum computing. All the stuff is put out by scientists. So it was actually really useful in learning that.
Well,
So
the rise of the creator economy is a reaction to this, right? That's a creation of new jobs that never could have existed without these technologies. The ability of all of us to broadcast our knowledge, whether you think it's frivolous knowledge or not, to everybody else, for us to watch stupid pet tricks on YouTube, for us to have creators that are paid through advertising mechanisms and things directly as opposed through network structures. All of those things are reactions to that. So there are plenty of good things
sure.
to come out of these things, but the change factor that we're getting ready to go through is going to be much faster than the one that's come before.
The second one I'll get to, job destruction causes a certain percentage of people to rise up sometimes. The other is massive inequality of wealth. And we're seeing that grow in capitalist countries. And we're seeing that if you have the resources to, for example, train LLMs, you're part of a very small group of companies that can train the larger scale LLMs and accumulate wealth based on that. So there is some concern that in this AI era, it's not going to democratize wealth. It might democratize some forms of learning and information, which is great, but there's some concerns there about the societal implications of the opposite of democratizing wealth because of the ability to take advantage of things faster. I don't have an opinion on that yet. I'm saying that is one of an answer to that questions. That's one of the things that I'm reading the writings of smarter people than me about sociology, what's happened in other similar times in history when wealth inequalities have gotten too large. And we're seeing that now. And I think AI is potentially one of the things that's going to exacerbate that.
Jonathan Scharf, Dr. Scharf said, with modular nuclear reactors severely behind in development in the US in comparison to China and Russia, is it likely that China and Russia have a leg up on data center and AI development in the coming years?
I have an answer to that, but do y'all want to take that?
No, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm actually not worried about that. I think we have tremendous potential. As Scott Galloway said, it's a branding problem. Our whole country has been mostly anti-nuclear power for decades, and it's all turning very, very fast. And when we turn fast on something, the US innovates fast on that as well. The innovation is being fueled by the richest companies on the planet. So they are investing in these small modular reactors. So I totally agree with Jason that it's a concern, but I'm not deeply concerned about it because I do think the rate of innovation in that is about to skyrocket, driven not by the desire to protect against climate change, unfortunately, but driven by the power, the need to power these data centers.
And
Also, the data centers that we have technology in them that is ahead of those other countries.
our ability to build the data center, no one can touch.
Yeah.
So no one's even close to the capability. Power, lots of people are going to do things with power, but our ability, just watch what's going on at CES, right? Our ability to create, the concept of the data center is pretty much a dinosaur that's floating around anyway. There's going to be decentralized and distributed data structures that crush any individual data center that are going to win. It's not going to be a singular bunch of data centers that win.
Do we have time for one more question before we get the winning question?
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any global standards, Dallas Richard asked this question, that take a leap forward near term in terms of digital privacy or AI ethics? Any global standards out there now?
Yes, they're all in development. On the privacy side, there are 4 or 5 that come together. Some of those I named, the verifiable credential standard, the decentralized identity standard, those kind of things that are underway that are all working to do this. And they're being incorporated in technology as we speak. Most recently, there's an AI ethics publication, the AI new working paper standard that just came out from the US government that is actually very, very, very good. It'll take a while for that to circulate and be accepted in other places and times. And, political structures over the next few years will be interesting to see how those things percolate through everything, but lots of great people are working on it.
Okay, winning question.
Let's do the winning question.
Okay, the winning question tonight
Sure, they're in the room.
is Javier Tamborel here.
All right. Congratulations.
Javier asked, in the printing press analogy, what technology represents the press, represents the paper, and represents the writer?
You ready? All right. So the press are the LLM technologies and the other things we're doing around the math involved in the structure. The paper is all of the accumulated knowledge that we are generating every day. Those 200 million people that are creators, that's what we're training this on. Everything you've ever done or posted or said on the internet, that's what we're training it on. Because paper in the future isn't the same, right? You're asked who the, reader is, right? Who's the writer in this? The reader and the writer is the same. We are all the results of that. We get to now fold that in as our little advisor that sits on our shoulder and augments the kind of things we do, which allows us to create better, faster, stronger, like Jimmy just illustrated, through the things that they did. And so what's known as agentic AI and agentic technologies are going to extend. They're going to extend our hands. They're going to extend our mouth. They're going to extend our brain. They give us the ability to be the great tool using animal, that we are. And that's the coolest thing. That's what the printing press did, right? It expanded our speech. It expanded our reason. It expanded our ability to draw on what went before, because now we could record it. When cuneiform was created, right, and people wrote things down in ancient Sumer, that started us down the path to be able to collect information and understand, those that came before and build on it. Now we're going to have the ability to multiply that 1,000-fold. So where will we go from there? I think you're going to see a lot of things that we thought were on this incremental path of development, this incremental path to go along and do things. And suddenly we're going to leapfrog, those things, because now we have capabilities we never had before, just like when the pulley was invented.
Yeah, the agentic technology is exciting to me because it gives you the ability to create an agent to work on your behalf with purpose, with mission, with whatever you give. And you don't have to be consulted with everything that's going on unless it somehow qualifies in a way that you told it to qualify. The ability to save time and an understanding because it knows what you're really interested in, those are pretty exciting.
I'll just add one last thought to that. Byron Reese, author of The Fourth Age and many other great books. He's been a speaker at the Austin Forum. He's been on the podcast before. He posed a question to me once and he said, do you consider LLMs the next evolution of information organization? So, Byron, what do you mean? And he said, well, DNA was in many ways the first organization of information that really mattered to us as living organisms. And then he went through various stages in the history of the planet and the history of humanity, including the printing press, the internet and the World Wide Web, et cetera. And all of these things enabled us to organize information in different ways. And he said, isn't an LLM that has had all of the world's information encoded into the model? And that's a really important point to think about. Whatever you think about the token generation methodology being probabilistic, having potential for a hallucination, et cetera, do remember that embedded in that incredibly large model is much of the information that's ever been produced in the world has been trained through this dense set of neural networks into this model and can be extracted in increasingly effective ways if you know how to pay attention. Remember, the seminal paper was called Attention is All You Need. And that's when these Google and other researchers realized they could train a neural network with vast amounts of information and then through careful techniques, which we now call prompting, pull on the right parts of that trained model to pull the right information out. And so he would say it relates to that printing press and paper model, but he would say it sort of transcends it, just as that's not a very good analogy for DNA, which was a prior organization of information. Nonetheless, it's an evolution of different information organization techniques. And he would say the training these deep neural networks is the latest in that evolution of organizing all the world's information into something that can be made really useful.
That's an interesting question, but I have to make one comment. The transformer architectures that we know, in fact, GPT stands for generative pre-trained transformer. That's what that's about. And what they do is once you get your language encoded into your question, it's no longer words. It's tokens, which represent words or subwords. And the matching is done not based on the content of what you said, but what's similar in the database that it's been trained on. So once it becomes a token, it's no longer language as we understand it. So you're right. It does organize information.
Thanks for your question, Javier, and you'll see Jay after the presentation.
Great. Congratulations. And thank you, Kate, and thank you to our speakers.